Welcome back. Well, today I am joined by President Mike Gaskins of the El Toro Water District. Well, Mike, how are you today? How are things going?
We're surviving. I'm kind of hating this COVID and the isolation it brings with it, but we're getting by, and the district is doing everything it can to keep its workforce safe and healthy, and
Right.
and our customers as well. So
Exactly. Well, good to hear. Good to hear. And I know you've got some interesting stuff to go over with us today, so I'll just let you go right at it.
okay, well, everybody looks at the El Toro as the water district, and if we do water, we do water. But after we deliver water to you, you let it run down the drain, you flush it down the toilet, and it goes somewhere. And where it goes, leaves your house, goes through some pipes into a central collections area, uh, and down those pipes, uh, mostly flowing downhill, because that's what that kind of stuff does, is flow downhill, until it gets to some low point. And then we have lift stations that lift the sewage at this point up to a higher point where it flows again by gravity, eventually reaching the sewage treatment plant, which is over on Ridge Route between the freeway and Moulton Parkway, bordered by the golf course, the RV lot, etc. So some of you may know where it is. And the sewage is treated there. We have whole crews that make sure that whole system keeps working as it continues through the entire system. And a lot of people work pretty hard to make sure that the sewage continues to flow. Sewage is kind of an interesting word because it's 99.9% water.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Wow.
not really very much solids,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's got a high biology or biological content and some pretty nasty germs in it.
Yeah. That's
If
for
it
sure.
Right, if it were released into the environment without being treated, it could cause a lot of damage, could cause a lot of disease, um, and so that's the job
Yeah.
of sewage treatment personnel.
Now, I was looking at one of your maps here. You've got a sewer collection system facilities. Tell me a little bit about what we're seeing there with that map.
Well, if you look at the map, it shows we have 115 miles of sewage collections pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't include the pipe that runs from the houses to the sewage collection pipe, the sewer drains.
Mm-hmm.
And those pipes that come from the house to the drains are called laterals. And like I said, it flows downhill
Right.
into those. And then so at the low points in our system, there are sewage lift stations
Mm-hmm.
that have pumps and backup pumps.
Okay.
So if the main pump fails, we have backup pumps. And if the backup pump fails, we have some mobile pumps that can be brought on site.
Okay. So when
Go ahead.
So when we see trucks, like sometimes I'll see the trucks over at the station near me, which is off of Oso Parkway. So that's a lift station. So if we see trucks and stuff there, what is it that they're doing?
Probably maintenance, or perhaps just inspecting. We have a very rigorous plan, regular maintenance plan, where we actually over a 5-year cycle and visually inspect with a robot camera that runs through the sewers and visually inspects and records
Oh, that's cool.
the inside of the sewers. And we have a real problem because that sewage is very high in fertilizer.
Right.
And so all those plants up there and around the sewers would really like to get into that fertilizer, and they do. They work their way in through joints in the pipes and different things like that and collect root balls.
Hmm.
And, we have specialized equipment and crews that run down through the pipes, and they have specialized root cutters and cut out those root balls, which would disrupt the flow. And I know that some of the pictures that were provided to you will show some of those root balls. So perhaps, this would be a good place to show that.
Yeah, well, that is a really good, I mean, it's just amazing how large the roots are. And that, like you said, they get in the smallest little opening, and then they just flourish once they get in there and get bigger?
Oh yeah, and then they, absorb the nutrients that are in the sewage.
Wow.
Um, and so when the sewage finally gets to the treatment plant, if the treatment plant is working as it should, well, and I had Dennis Cafferty, the general manager, try to give me an idea, because this is primarily a village show that
Yeah.
we're doing. District wide, we're about 115 miles. About 40% of the area is village.
Hmm.
And so we guess that somewhere around 40, 45 miles of those pipes are in the village.
Right, right. And I'm sure there's a lot of maintenance that goes on in there as well. Let me ask you something about, more people, including the folks in the village, are staying at home. So they're not really venturing out as much. Are you finding more problems over the last 9 months?
We aren't really, our flows aren't up very much, particularly in the village. I think all of the residents here are very aware of water conservation, and they are doing their job. Before I came on the board, I think there was a lot of effort to educate everybody that 55 gallons per day usage was the target. And I think for the most part, most of the homes are under that, 55 gallons per day per person,
Mhm.
are under that. And so our residents are doing a good job of water conservation. That being said, we're still treating roughly 3.8 million gallons a day of sewage, of effluent.
Right, right. And let's also talk about, you've got a slide here about water recycling plant. And which picture is that showing? Where is that located?
It's right next to, it's sandwiched between the RV lot and Ridge Route.
Oh,
And
okay.
right, if you take your dog for the walk at the dog walking area, and it's right there. And we do a lot of effort for odor control. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of odor that drifts over toward Clubhouse 4, I think.
Okay.
Clubhouse and the golf course. But
Mhm.
it's relatively hidden. You can see it if you go to the RV lot. And the sewage flows into there,
Mhm.
and it goes through a bar screen, which takes out things that shouldn't have been flushed. The sanitary wipes, which really don't break down anywhere in the sewer system. Um, the legendary money that ends up in the tales of people who find a $5 bill or maybe $100 bill.
Seriously, that's actually kind of funny.
It's in the legend, there's a story of someone who found that, and other stuff, but there's a bar screen that takes that out, and pulls it out. It's got a lot of other debris, but it's landfilled for that. Then the liquids and the solids, the remainders, go into settling tanks, which have bubblers in them that keep everything stirred up so that everything separates.
Mhm.
And hopefully the solids settle to the bottom and are concentrated. The liquids flow out over a weir of some sort, and flow out into some aeration tanks where a lot of little bacteria are in there, happily reproducing and eating organic matter. And if you just took pure water and bubbled this bubble in there at the temperature that most of this operates at, it'd have an oxygen content of about 7 or 8 parts per million.
Mm.
But these little bugs are in there eating and breeding and everything else. And oxygen in there could be as low as 2 or 3
Mm.
parts per million because they're doing so well.
Right.
But they're also taking out organic material
Mhm.
and kind of polishing the water. Then that water will be taken through filtration. And then after it's filtered, it's treated with chlorine. And then it goes into our tertiary treatment. And then that water is what's being used for irrigation. It's tertiary or third degree treatment.
Right.
And it's used for the irrigation for the golf courses and a lot of the landscaping.
Mhm.
And we, of course, use more of that during summer months because there's more demand for it.
Right. Right.
Unused water is transported through pipes to the ocean,
Mhm.
and it goes out through an outfall at Aliso Beach.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on, and we really don't ever know unless we obviously talk to you about it. Let's talk
Well,
about some of your cleaning. Your cleaning. I know we talked a little bit about the root program. What are some of the other things? Like I know you have on here sewer pipeline cleaning, video inspection, which I think is that the camera that you were talking about.
that's the camera that runs through there. We have a giant vacuum cleaner, a truck with a big tank on the back.
Mm.
Uh, and there is one picture that the truck with a round tank and it has like a snorkel on it. It's a giant vacuum machine called a Vactor,
Okay.
Vactor, and it can both push water through and it can also suck or pull the obstructions out. Um, and so if there is a reported problem in the system,
Mhm.
then the Vactor is called out. The Vactor crew goes out there, identifies the section with the obstruction, and clears that obstruction. And so the crews both do a regular preventive maintenance scheduled, and they also respond to concerns. You know, if there's something reported by a citizen, and it's been a long time since we've had a spill.
It's
And I
good.
don't have anything right in front of me, but we've been very, very good in terms of maintaining our system.
That's
And
great. That's great. I mean, good thing, I mean, that's kudos to you guys for keeping on top of everything.
well, the idea is, and the whole water industry in general, but I think particularly El Toro, if we do our job really, really well, we are invisible. You only notice this when you see it. Well, I wonder what that truck does, it goes by.
Well,
So,
that's great. I mean, good, definitely good to hear. And then maybe you can kind of go over sort of your finances because I know you provided me a slide on that, and it looks good.
well, yeah, we spend a fair amount of money, but we're involved in a consortium of other water districts in the South County called SACWA. You'll see that in about the middle of the set of data there, because I'm not looking directly at the slide.
All
But
right.
SACWA handles most of our solids. We share the outfalls, the ocean outfalls. Our liquids go out through Aliso Beach, but there are other outfalls at Doheny and down in San Clemente and that area. SACWA, which we pay shares and for their services, they also handle our solids. We don't have any way of treating our solids, and it was determined quite a few years ago when the plant was built that money was borrowed to build that plant. And you'll see an item called debt service on that too. And
Mhm.
eventually that debt will be retired. And then hopefully we'll be able to roll that money back into capital improvements, et cetera. But as it stands right now, what happens, the solids are collected and then loaded into a truck
Mhm.
that is hauled 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day down to the regional plant off La Paz Road, which is operated by Molten Nigel um, down by the park
Okay.
down in Laguna Niguel. But Sakwa and Molten Nigel, Santa Margarita, Capistrano Beach, etc., all operate those. Sakwa also handles all the laboratory work, testing the ocean outfalls, testing the ocean waters,
Mhm.
and we share in those costs.
Okay. Okay. Well, great. And then overall it has a total of about 10 million.
Roughly, to
Okay.
handle the wastewaters. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot, like you said, that goes into it. And you know what though, so far so good. You guys have done a great job. And like you said, you haven't had any leaks, significant leaks. So that's a plus.
Well, again, we haven't had spills and leaks, and um, there are creek crossings and places that are vulnerable,
Right.
et cetera. And again, the water that we deliver to you, we buy from Metropolitan Water District, basically 100%. We're always looking for alternate supplies and making deals with some of the adjacent water districts, Irvine Water District, and trying to get some interest in Irvine Lake as a raw water source. We share in the ability to get treated water from the Baker Water Plant,
Right.
um, and some different things like that. But we still have to import all our water, and so we have to pass that cost on to the customer, and that basically determines a large portion of what the cost of water is.
Right. Right. All right.
Maintenance of it.
No, you're exactly right, and I know that there was concerns. You know, there's always a concern, like, oh my gosh, are we ever going to run out of water? And you know, we're not going to run out of water. I mean, there's plenty of water, and of course, we always hope for more rain to have more water. Um,
Today we're okay. Tomorrow we don't know what's going to bring. It's looking like a dry winter for us, and
so far,
there's storage in the system, but if we don't get some rain in the next 3, 4 years, um, the big topic whenever we talk to other water districts and certainly Metropolitan, which is the big um, system out there, everybody's concerned, and all the districts are looking at storage,
right?
ability to store it. And we have some things on the horizon. We have a large reservoir here in the district, the R6 reservoir, which is um, Aliso and on the edge of Mission Viejo.
Hmm.
And it's a covered reservoir. It's got a big neoprene type cover on it.
Right.
And cover is going to have to be replaced in the next, probably within 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that sun beating down on it's not helping.
Yeah, well, it's been on there for 15 years or so
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So we know that's coming, and when we do that, um, it's gonna take money. We're gonna have to drain that reservoir. So right now, that's
Oh,
a storage that we have. It's a buffer. You
yeah. Yeah.
know?
Well, we're going to have to get creative over the years. You know, we hope we don't have to get too creative. And like you said, we'll have to do some more rain dances.
I think that you've got one of the best staff I've ever seen. You know that we got the award for best workplace with the Orange County Register.
Right.
You know, we have very happy and contented employees, and hopefully we can make all the right decisions, and we're certainly working at it.
Good. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, Mike. And I wish you a happy 2021.
I hope it's better. And you know, they say hindsight is 2020, and this year is too true.
Too true. That is true. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure.
All right. And we'll be right back after this.